Today, we're going to be talking about what pregnant women and postpartum moms need to know about deep fatigue and the problems associated with anemia. We're also going to be talking about our female cycles in relation to how they reflect the greater cycles of nature. And we're also going to be talking about our perspectives, so how our perspective influences our experience. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Maria Chowdhury, and I'm a licensed midwife and a certified professional midwife. I am an herbalist and a creator of Birth Song Botanicals. So Birth Song Botanicals is a line of herbal products that came directly from my personal practice as a midwife. And so here today, I'm in the front of the camera, and then Heaven is in the back of the camera. So the way it's set up, we're recording this live, and at the same time, we're also going to record this for a podcast. And so the way it's set up, I don't see the comments. And so Heaven is the one that sees the comments. And so she's the one that's going to help with the comments and the questions. So when you hear another voice, you know that that's her. And so I'm going to invite you now to let us know where you're listening from. In the comments, just put where you're listening, the town or the city that you're from. And if this is your first time meeting me, let's get a heart or a thumbs up and a smile. And I'm going to pour myself a cup of tea. Of course, it's Nettle tea and rose hips. Okay, is there anyone there, Heaven?
It looks like we have 2 people watching.
Wonderful. So we'll just get started then. Okay, I'm going to have a sip and a breath. So I want to start by talking about these cycles, our feminine cycles and our cycles, the cycles of nature. And so I'm going to have to use my hands to describe this, even though some people will be listening later on a podcast. So I'm using my hands to describe this, and I would like you to imagine is a big clock, right? And on the clock, we're going to start at 6 o'clock on the bottom. At 6 o'clock, then it's going to go to 3 o'clock, or 9 o'clock, and then noon, and then 3, and back down to 6, right? So it's following clockwise direction. And so this is one of the greatest cycles. This is the cycle of the seasons. So when I start on the bottom, we're going to call this winter. And winter goes into spring, goes into summer, goes into fall, and then back down into winter. So that goes from the bottom of the circle up to the spring, to the summer, into the fall, and then back down. So those are the seasonal cycles, right? And then if we were to do that, we'd also have directions. So the direction, we're going to put it a little bit different than we would expect. We're going to put north on the bottom at 6 o'clock. And so the direction of north is at 6, and then the direction of east is at 9, and the direction of south is at 12, and the direction of west is at 3. So it goes north on the bottom, east, south on the top, west, and then back down to north on the bottom. A beautiful cycle. I practice Tai Chi and Qigong, and so this is a movement that we do, and so I'm incorporating my Tai Chi practice to the herbal practice to midwifery. That's great. Let's talk about the next cycle. And so one of the next cycles, that is going to be our fertility cycle. And so that starts at the bottom. We're going to start here, and so we are born. We're born and we're young, and we go through and we start our first period, our menarche, and that would be like in the east, right? And then we menstruate and we mature and we come to this apex where we give birth. And then we start to go through our postpartum, we go through our breastfeeding cycle, and then we come back down to our menstrual cycle. So we're going to just be born, then we're going to have our first period, give birth, breastfeed, postpartum, and really I said that wrong the first time. I really want to say this like this. Then we have our perimenopausal, and then down in the winter we have our menopause. That's the better way to do it. So we're going to be born, we're going to menarche, birth, we're going to breastfeed, perimenopause, and then menopause. That's a greater cycle that women go through, right? And then we have a menstrual cycle. I see there's a question, but I'll get to it in just a second. So now we have a menstrual cycle, and this is just like, I'm going to just talk about our feelings. This is just a generalization of feelings. So my hand is on the bottom of the circle, and I'm about to cycle around just like I have. And these are my feelings. My hand's on the bottom, so I just finished menstruating. And now I've just finished menstruating, and I'm coming up, and I'm rising up. I have a lot of energy, and I'm rising up, and I suddenly have a lot of really great ideas. I suddenly feel real active. I feel physically active. I feel mentally active. And then I have these great ideas. I might even feel pretty, and I want to reach out and touch you and talk to you and be with you and share my great ideas. And that's ovulation at the peak, at the top. And then after the ovulation passes, I might start to feel a little less sure of that good idea. I might not have the same perspective that I had before now that I see it from this side. I'm unsure, and then I was so excited to have you around, but now I really just need my personal space, and then I start to menstruate again. And then I start, after my menstruation, I come back out, and I have another great idea. And I feel really good and really vibrant and full, and I want to reach out and hang out with you and be with you, and I want to touch you, and I want to be with you. And then now I start to question that idea again. I start to pull away. I start to really need my space as I menstruate again. So that is just a brief glance of the menstrual cycle, right? And then we have the pregnancy cycle, and that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, is the pregnancy cycle. And so here my hand is on the bottom of the circle again, and I've been menstruating. And so now, as my hand rises up to the east, rises up to that 9 o'clock spot, I've conceived, right? I've conceived. And now my pregnancy is developing and developing. And then I get to the top of that circle and I give birth. And then I go and I start to go through my breastfeeding, immediate postpartum, and then my breastfeeding, and then I go through my longer postpartum, and then as I circle back down the circle, I'm back down to my menstruation. And then I can repeat the cycle. I can menstruate, and I can be fertile, and then I can conceive again, and I can birth again, and then I can postpartum again, the long-term postpartum breastfeeding, and I can come back down to my menstrual cycle. So those are just simple examples of the greater circle that we're a part of, and then our micro circle that we're a part of, and that we go through in a cyclical manner each month, and how our emotions respond to that. Is there any thoughts or questions? Tell me, can any of you feel like you're on a cycle like this? Does that make sense to you? If it makes sense to you, give us a heart, give us a thumbs up so we can know we're on the same page. I'm going to have a sip and a breath.
Paula Hartgrave has tuned in again. She says hello again.
Hey, Paula. How are you? I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so we have a little bit about the cycle. We understand about the cycles. And now let's talk about perspectives. Because from my perspective, perspective is everything. And so our perspective, how we're perceiving what's happening in our bodies, how we perceive what's happening in our menstrual cycles, in our fertility, in our pregnancies, in our births, in our sensuality, in our sexuality, how we perceive all these things really influences our experience, right? And the truth is we all want to have these super empowering experiences that we feel really good about. So let's see if we can get in alignment with our perspectives to have these experiences that we're wanting to have. So I'm going to illustrate a picture. What about the perspective? How does this look? the perspective of being curious, the perspective of being interested, the perspective of trusting and allowing and accepting, versus the perspective of resistance. Ooh, not liking, I just don't like it. The perspective of it's gross. The perspective of I don't understand, I'm uncomfortable, I'm uncertain. Those perspectives, all of those perspectives, we have time and place for all those perspectives. But when it becomes a primary perspective of being open, curious, and trusting, and accepting of a natural biological function, that's really different than being really afraid and pushing away and resisting and being closed and being always in this uncertain place, where if everything is always uncertain and this mystery, and then it's always this unknown, I mean, when we're in the unknown place, it becomes scary. And that's a big part of the pain of birth, is because people don't know what's happening and they're really afraid, and that just increases your cortisol levels and increases your pain. That's even in a normal labor and birth when she's having really strong contractions, but versus a woman that has an understanding of what's happening and she feels comfortable and she trusts the process, she will still have strong contractions, she will still feel the intensity, but she's not going to have the same level of cortisol and fear pumping through her system. So perspective is everything. So I'd like to give you an example. So in my midwifery practice, please understand, these are generalizations. But in my midwifery practice, we'd always have these consultations. And then they would ask me a bunch of questions. And then finally it would be my turn, and I'd ask them some questions. And then one of my questions would be, describe your menstrual cycle. What was your menstrual cycle like? And one general answer would be, oh, yeah, my cycle, I mean, whatever it comes, it goes. It's just a part of my life. I live with it. It doesn't really stand out to me. I mean, yeah, it's just a part of me. There's not much to comment on. Doesn't really hurt, comes all the time, no big deal. And then there's another perspective, another answer I would get, a variation of something like, oh my goodness, my cycle is really awful. Like, I have headaches, I cramp, it puts me down for a couple days. I really dread my cycle. It's just dirty. I just feel depleted and worn out, and I really am really glad I'm pregnant so I don't have to deal with that, right? Because it's just awful. And then there's another person that I would ask, how's your cycle? And she'd say something along the lines like, oh, I've been doing my fertility awareness, so I'm pretty clear of my cervical mucus, and I track my cycles, and when my period comes, I see it as like a way to see how healthy I am, and so I'm pretty into my cycle. Like, it's cool for me. Like, I would say my menstrual cycle is my friend. I'm pretty into it. Okay, so those are just variations of answers. And so, and now in the unfolding of their birth process, if you looked at the basic information, like a textbook information, they would be in the same category, meaning they gave birth naturally. They didn't have any complications. They were able to stay home and birth their baby. They were able to nurse. And so no really like red flags or nothing really stood out in these pregnancies. So I don't like using the word, but they had textbook pregnancy. The births just unfolded and they gave birth naturally. However, their stories, the one perspective, one girl's story is kind of like, whoa, I was just like doing something and then my water broke. I've heard stories of like, oh, I was at the store, or I was just doing cooking and washing dishes and being in the kitchen and my water broke. I didn't expect it, and then I just went into labor, and before I knew it, everything got really intense and everybody was setting up all around me, and then the baby came, and it just kind of happened on its own. It just happened. And there's that story. There's the other story of, oh my gosh, it took forever for the baby to get here. I finally went into labor, and then when I went into labor, it took forever, and it was so hard, and it just really was just the most painful. It was just terrible, but I'm glad I had my baby and everything went good, and I'm really glad I felt well cared for and everything went really good, but oh my gosh, it's pretty awful. And then there's the other girl that's like, So I was watching all these signs for my labor, and I thought it was going to come, and then it didn't, and then it finally came, and I was a little bit surprised, and then it was way bigger than I thought it would be, but then I was able to cope, I was able to breathe through, and I was supported and loved, and I just trusted my body and my baby and my birth, and my body just took over, and I gave birth, and it was really beautiful, and I feel really empowered by it. I feel stronger now. And so the only difference between all of these births is their perspective. And so I'm putting that on, giving that perspective to you to think about what is your perspective. What is your perspective about your menstruation, about your birth, about your postpartum, about your breastfeeding experience, about your sensuality, your sexuality, your personality? It's all perspective. And so you're wanting to start to have this really emboldened, empowered birth experience. That's a first place to look, is your perspective. See how you fit in the cycle of things, where you are in the cycle of things, and then also to start to address the underlying causes of fatigue and depletion. And that's anemia, and we're going to start going there. But I'm going to have a pause and a breath. Is there anything that I should know about over there, Heaven?
Paula wanted you to know that she's 14 weeks and feeling more energy coming, and hopefully less nausea coming soon.
Oh, yes, too. Nausea is brutal. And so I think our next video is going to be about nausea. But you might be feeling better by then. And then you can tell us of all the things that worked. I'm glad you're starting to feel better. 14 weeks, yes. You start to turn the corner, after that 12-week mark. And so, yeah. Okay, so let's carry on. So what I want to talk about is the fatigue and the depletion and the root causes. I just told you that, of how anemia is one of the root causes. And so let's talk about pregnancy and anemia. Okay. Last week I talked about this. I'm just going to briefly just do it one more time. If you already start from a depleted place, and then you conceive, and you're already from a depleted place, and then you go through your early pregnancy symptoms, Paula knows, feeling nauseous, can't sleep, just odd fatigue. You're already, and so because your hormones, this is influencing you, but you started from a place of depletion, you're just going to feel worse, right, for longer. And then if you're not able to bring your hemoglobin up, then it just perpetuates throughout your pregnancy, and then when you give birth, you start off tired, you have that long exhausting birth, you push your baby out, it takes a long time, and then it leads to more postpartum bleeding. We're going to talk more about that, and it leads to prolonged, longer postpartum recovery and to depression and anxiety and a drop in your immune system. And so anywhere you are in the cycle, if you're listening and you're not pregnant, you're not postpartum, it doesn't matter where you are in the cycle. It's always the right time to start to increase, to start to bring in these nourishing herbs. It's always the right time to bring in the nourishing herbs. Okay? So in pregnancy, there is this wonderful thing that happens in your body. It's called blood volume expansion. So your body has to grow a baby. So it has to expand in all ways to grow this baby. And so the uterus has to grow, it has to create amniotic fluid, grow a baby, grow a placenta. And so in order to do that, your body makes more blood. And so it makes 50 to 100% more blood. That means the amount of blood that you have doubles in your body, doubles. Right? And so let's just say we have this much blood in our body, so we have a cup of blood in our body, and so that doubles, your body produces more blood, but really it's producing more fluid volume, and so what's happening is it's as if I'm pouring in another cup of water to that 1 cup of blood. So now I have 2 cups of blood, but I only have 1 cup of red blood cells, white blood cells, and 1 cup of hemoglobin to 2 cups. So if you can see my hands, I think you'll understand. But what I'm trying to say is the amount of hemoglobin didn't change. The amount of red blood cells that are carrying oxygen didn't change. But now you have more fluid in that blood. So when you do your hemoglobin test in early pregnancy, you might be, we'll just make up a number, say you're 10, and then you start your blood volume expansion, you'll easily become a 9 or an 8 because there is more fluid. And so that's one reason why it's called the false anemia of pregnancy, meaning you didn't suddenly get less red blood cells. It's just that your red blood cells got diluted. And so in one way, the false anemia of pregnancy is a good thing, because what that's saying is your body is able to expand. It's able to grow. You have hemodilution. That's wonderful. That means you made a bunch of amniotic fluid and a bunch of blood. Versus if you did not expand, you would have this thing called hemoconcentration. Hemoconcentration would be that your body didn't produce enough amniotic fluid, your uterus didn't grow enough, your baby doesn't have room to grow, the placenta is not functioning properly, and then you have this thing where the baby doesn't grow, and it's called intrauterine growth restriction, and you don't want that. So as much as anemia is a problem, it's actually a signpost that your pregnancy is developing as it should. So that means your body is expanding and growing, and now you need to nourish your body as it expands and grows. Okay, so that's blood volume expansion. The reason also why you have blood volume expansion, it's critical for all the development that I just told you about, how the amniotic fluid and the placenta and the baby grows. But then also you have all this extra blood. So then when you go through the birth process, and then you go through the second stage of pushing, and then you go through the third stage of the placenta expulsion, your body created this extra blood essentially to just give away to the birth, right? And so when you push your placenta out, just be prepared, 2 cups of blood are going to come out with the placenta. And if you have an adequate hemoglobin level and you're well hydrated, and you push those 2 cups of the placenta out and 2 cups of blood come out, really, in a few moments, you should be able to get up and walk to the bathroom and go to the bathroom and then go get in the herb bath and be just fine. But if you're not hydrated and you do not have adequate hemoglobin levels, you push your 2 cups of your placenta out and your 2 cups of blood, it leads to 2 cups, leads to 3 cups, leads to 4 cups, and I'll talk about that. It leads to a postpartum hemorrhage, and those women don't stand up really quickly and walk to the bathroom and take their herb bath. They get the next level of care. And so your hemoglobin takes, actually, in some women, takes a really long time throughout their whole pregnancy. Every single day they're working on their iron. And then there's some women that kind of just take their chlorophyll and drink their tea, and it just comes right up because they're already in a place of they're not depleted, right? So I want to talk a little bit more about hemoglobin, but I kind of also want to talk about, like, what are the signs and symptoms of anemia? And so fatigue is one of them, exhaustion, feeling really and looking really pale. Your nail beds are pale, your gums are pale, you're just feeling low emotionally, meaning signs of depression, signs of anxiety, you're susceptible to every little cold that comes by, your heart starts to palpitate. And so all that sounds bad, right? And that is bad. But I think for me, the underlying thing that I really want to just underline for you as a midwife, as the one that's been awake at 2 o'clock in the morning with hundreds of women in their home, is that all that's bad, but then that postpartum hemorrhage is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid that because it's the one time that your body, I don't want to say has a negative feedback loop, but it kind of has a little process that happens that doesn't really work out in our favor. So when you're in third stage, you've pushed your placenta out in a normal labor and birth, what I just described, the placenta comes out, and then 2 cups of blood. And then last week I talked about that vitamin K, how it coagulates the blood. And so this big blood clot will come out, and then in a normal pregnancy, she'll rest for a little while, and normal blood loss, she'll feel fine. She'll drink some water, eat a little bit, and then get up and go to the bathroom and take her herb bath. But in a postpartum hemorrhage, what happens is the body will deliver the placenta, right? And then the placenta will and then the 2 cups of blood will come out. And so this woman is already at a depleted place. She's already anemic, right? And so the body's like, oh, wait a second. I just lost a lot of blood. I don't have enough blood at this place. I need to give more blood here because I don't have enough. So the body will shunt a bunch of blood to the placental site. And then that side is open, so she'll lose that blood. And then the body will say, oh my goodness, I don't have enough blood. I need to shunt more blood there. And then she'll lose more blood. Oh my goodness, I don't have enough blood. I need to shunt more blood there. And so it's a cycle of her losing more blood because she didn't start off with enough. And so that's what triggers a postpartum hemorrhage. And so those women, sometimes they can be managed at home, but they all need an extra level of care, right? And so they're being treated for shock. That means they're being laid down, they're laying down, their feet are up, the oxygen is on, the blood pressure cuff is on, they're having vigorous fundal massage, they might be having Pitocin injection, they might have Cytotec inserted rectally, they might be taking Methergin orally, they might be taking herbs. If it's managed good, they're okay, they can stay home. Some of those women transport to the hospital, they get IV fluids. They also, in an extreme case, they would get a transfusion. Now, I've never had to transport in that situation. I've always been able to manage my hemorrhages at home. But just so you know, that's the next step, the next level of care. And this is one of the few things I feel like we can prevent. It's one of those things that seems invisible, like you never know. But because you never know, if you go through pregnancy and you push your baby out and push your placenta out and you didn't bleed, woo, and you had your strong hemoglobin and you drank your Nettles and you drank your chlorophyll and you ate your great foods and you pushed your baby out, you never really know what could have happened. But the girls that had the hemorrhage and you see that they didn't do all those things, it's real clear that these things that I'm about to describe to you are essential. I'm going to take a pause and have a sip. Okay, so since I'm talking about how essential it is, I do want to just encourage you, since I'm not your midwife, I want you to talk to your midwife, I want you to talk to your care provider early on and see about how you're going to get your hemoglobin up from their perspective and how they're going to prevent and manage a postpartum hemorrhage. And because there's another piece I forgot to tell you. Of course, there's always more. So after this postpartum hemorrhage, this woman that just had all this extra level of care, it's not just like done as soon as the bleeding stops. Now she just lost all this blood, so now she has this long path to recovery. So a normal postpartum, even the girl that doesn't bleed too much, she already has a long path of recovery, right? So this takes weeks. We say 6 weeks, but we all know it's way more than 6 weeks, and we also all know we might as well just give us a year, right, to make it, to recover fully. And so, and the postpartum hemorrhage, she's going to need a lot of chlorophyll and a lot of nettles and tea, and she's going to really need a lot of iron supplementation. But her since she's so depleted, her susceptibility to infection is much higher. Her susceptibility to the postpartum blues, which could have been the blues, could easily get triggered into depression, to like, oh, feeling a little nervous, to anxiety, to heart palpitations. And so postpartum hemorrhage, postpartum infection, those kind of can be interlinked, and postpartum depression can be interlinked. And so I'm really talking about this on the front end so that we can get you solid before you give birth and before you go through your postpartum. Okay, so what else do I want to talk to you about? I did talk to you, I just kind of ran through the list of what, in my practice, so I specialize in home birth, right? And so everyone has to have a risk assessment. And their risk assessment, one of the requirements is that no woman can be anemic and have a home birth. The health department would describe anemia as a 10. So you will have a hemoglobin of a 10. And so that's okay. For me, that would be baseline. But really, in my practice, I work really hard to get women to a 12. And so I want them to be at a 12, because a 10 is baseline. That's sometimes it's not good enough. We're going to over prepare, right? And so getting a woman to a 12. Some women, they also need to have a bunch of B vitamins to help increase their iron. Some women, it's really easy to increase their iron and their some not, but these are the primary things, the easiest, most straightforward things that I found in my practice. Would definitely be to drink Lady in Waiting tea. I'm holding it up because it's rich in red raspberry leaf and alfalfa and nettle and oat straw, and it has all these minerals in it. But then also the next thing is the chlorophyll, which I mentioned we're about to have some chlorophyll and bring that out and introduce that to you, so I'm super excited about that. And then the other thing is their diet and their nutrition. And so a diet that's rich in iron-rich foods, which are dark leafy greens, black beans, kidney beans, molasses, apricots actually have a lot of iron in them. Eggs have some iron. But red meat is what has a lot of iron in it. And so the easiest way would be eat steak and spinach, sprinkle some lemon on top of that spinach, eat that a couple times a week, drink your tea every single day, have your chlorophyll every single day. That's the most common, simple way to get most of those irons. Now, if you're a vegetarian, you have to make this a priority, because not only are you probably going to be low in protein, you're going to be low in iron, and you're going to be low in B vitamins. And so that takes a real strategic menu plan and a real strategic nutritional plan that you have to take the time out and talk with your care provider and talk with your midwife and go over your weekly and daily foods so that you're getting the most optimum, because you don't have that much time, you don't have that much money, you don't have that much space in your body to get all the foods in there, and so you got to be real efficient and strategic about it. So that's an important conversation to have. Okay. All right, I feel like we're just rolling through this. This is awesome. So we're going to talk about nettles. So let's start talking about nettles. Why nettles? Okay, so nettles, I have some of them here. It's pretty dark for you to see. And there's so much we can tell about nettles. I had this great story. I'll share it for another day. But nettles are really dark green, deep, rich green. And why nettles is because nettles carry and have chlorophyll. All plants do, but nettles have a lot of it, right? And it's easy to get out of the plant. And so chlorophyll, if you were to look at a red blood cell and you were to look at a chlorophyll cell under the microscope, their patterning is almost exactly the same. In the middle of a red blood cell, it has an H for heme, and then the middle of a chlorophyll cell, it has a C for carbon, but the rest of it fit. They almost are exactly the same. So they fit together. They go together really well. Red blood cells can get chlorophyll and carry it easily. The red blood cells are the part that carries oxygen throughout your body. So chlorophyll is a great and simple way to oxygenate your body. Red raspberry leaf, they go together. They are almost in every single one of my blends together. But nettle is really high in bioabsorbable, bioavailable iron. Not only is it really high in iron, it's also high in all your other minerals. As the more I learn, the more I realize your minerals are so important. So you want to have minerals, right? And so it's high in iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, right? And then it's high in all these vitamins, A, C, E, D, K. So we just mentioned vitamin K in this whole postpartum bleeding with the blood clotting. So vitamin K is critical to help you coagulate your blood. Vitamins D is critical for your immune health, so you're going to help prevent infection. And all these other minerals are going to feed your uterus so it optimally contracts and relaxes. And the iron component is going to build your blood, right? And so not only is it going to build your blood so you're oxygenated, but it's also going to build your blood because you have other components to your blood, like white blood cells. And so it's going to help support and boost your immune system. So nettles are paramount for that. And then also, it's great for digestion, for morning sickness. Also great for, I'm just restating that it's just so good for building, not only just building your blood and building your baby's blood, Because there's one little fact I probably could have told you about that's cool about your body and your uterus and birth and placenta. When you're at 20 weeks pregnant, there are 20 gallons of blood that go to the placenta and that's processed and given back to your body. So 20 gallons of blood a day is processed in the placenta. At birth, 100 gallons of blood every single day, every single 24 hours, 100 gallons of blood is processed in the placenta. So when we talk about postpartum hemorrhage and you start thinking about 100 gallons of blood are shunted to the placenta, then you start to understand how Nettles is critical to building your blood, and also those vitamins A, C, D, E, and K. Also there's bioflavonoids that are really good for cardiovascular and blood vessel health. So Nettles is where it's at. It's a powerhouse. And it's also considered food. So when you think of herbs, you're like, okay, there's different categories of herbs. You have food, you have medicine, and you have poison. For each one of us, these herbs can be fit into a different category. In another conversations, I'll go in more depth about that, but right now I'm going to just talk about food, and nettles and red raspberry leaf and alfalfa and oat straw. Those are all considered food. That's why they're called nourishing herbs. So you can drink cups and cups and cups and cups and cups of nettle and red raspberry leaf, and it's not going to be too much for your body. It's like eating food like spinach or carrots or beets, right? Oh, there's another benefit to nettle. Another benefit to nettle is sometimes in pregnancy you experience edema, swelling. And so if you're feeling all this swelling and this puffiness in your ankles, and you want to gently cleanse that extra swelling away, but you don't want to strip your body, right? So nettle is gently detoxifying, meaning it can clear your body and help rid of excess fluid, excess things that are stored that don't need to be, but it's not harsh or strong, so it's totally safe while you're pregnant. So it doesn't strip away, it just gets rid of the little extra retained fluid and yet feeds you. And that's really special because not a lot of herbs do that. And then the other herb we're going to talk about today is rose hips. And so rose hips are in this conversation because they're high in vitamin C. And so when you're thinking about iron supplements, you can take iron pills. They're probably going to cause constipation. And you don't want to take them with calcium. So then you have to think, okay, how am I going to do that? If I can't take my iron pills with calcium, so you can't take it with milk or cheese or butter. And then you got to take them with vitamin C. So you got sometimes they come formulated together. Sometimes you have to take an extra vitamin C. But that's another nice thing about nettles and chlorophyll is that they're not going to cause constipation, and you don't have to worry so much specifically about the constipation. They're going to feed you, particularly the nettle and the chlorophyll, they're going to help promote you to have healthy bowel movements because it's that gentle cleansing, and so it helps things move through your body a little bit. And so, but don't be alarmed or surprised if you have chlorophyll and nettle that you have really dark bowel movements, like dark green, like green, expect that. Okay, so rose hips. So rose hips is together because it's high in vitamin C. So vitamin C is helpful when you're absorbing iron. It's helpful when you're absorbing all those other minerals that I mentioned, right? So the rose hips in the blend is going to make your iron more available and easier for you to absorb. Also, rose hips are high in bioflavonoids, and these bioflavonoids are really great for vascular health and for heart health, so cardiovascular, blood vessel health. And vitamin C is superb and well known for its immune support. So we already talked about a person that has anemia, they're more susceptible to infection and their immune system is down. So both of these herbs are not really commonly known for these immune boosting herbs to take while you're sick, but they're incredibly supportive to help the optimization of your immune system so that you don't have to rely on those antibiotic herbs, so that you are strong and healthy throughout your pregnancy. And yeah, so let me see, are there any questions or thoughts? I'm going to have a sip and gather myself. Okay, wow, we're moving through this really quickly. This is wonderful. So, I want to cycle back around real quick. Remember, we started out with the cycles. We started off describing these greater cycles of the seasons from the winter, spring, summer, fall, back to winter. So one of my big reasons of why I'm talking to you about this right now is because where we are as of this recording, we're in the late summer, right? So we're in the late summer, and so just think about it. If we're feeling tired and depleted and fatigued right now, when we can go outside and have vitamin D, we can take our shoes off and touch the earth and get energy that way. We have tons of fresh fruits and vegetables that are available to us at the farmer's market or in our own gardens. We have, the roads are clear, and we have access to go into the grocery store because it's not freezing cold. Versus the winter time. In the winter, there's days where there's times when you haven't seen the sun for days. There are times when fresh fruit, fresh vegetables are really not available. There are times when it's snowing and icy and you can't get to the store. And so if you're depleted now and when it's sunny and warm and great outside, just think about what it's like when you enter the winter. When you enter the winter and your immune system is already compromised, you're already missing the sun you're already feeling the blues from missing the sun. You're already in a more depleted place, but then you come to it being anemic. It's much harder, especially when you're pregnant, especially when you're postpartum, breastfeeding, all of us really. So I'm talking to you now while it's summertime, while it's warm, while it's bright, to encourage you to drink and get your iron up and drink your nettles now so that in the winter you'll be prepared, your immune system will be prepared for that. I'm also talking to you about it now just because on my end also because our teas here, our lady-in-waiting teas in this tea tin, we're going to discontinue them. I'm not going to sell these anymore. We're going to offer the loose leaf teas. But these teas are in a tea tin and they're beautiful, and it's just really clear that we need to make this transition and transformation. Heaven will show you one really close. And and I'm a little bit on a time. So after October 1st, they're not going to be available. So if you're going to want to get them, now is the time, right? And you might as well stock up because winter's coming. And you also get a baby hat. That just happens to be perfect timing too, the little baby hat. But they're only $5 a piece because I'm wanting to move through them, get them to the hands, get them to the people that they need to get to so that I can clear that and we can move forward. And so really after October 1st, there's not going to be any more of that. And so that's another reason why I'm offering it to you. One other thing, just I wanted to let you know, nettle is one of our primary herbs as women. And so our teas, you know about Lady in Waiting, obviously, because I've been talking about it. But we also have Women's Balance, and Heaven's going to show you that. And so Women's Balance is for every phase of the cycle, no matter where you are in that menstrual cycle, in that fertility cycle, in the feminine cycle is perfect for that. And so we'll spend more time on a live about that. But so I just wanted to let you know that we have nettle in other teas for you. But it's getting close to time to end, and I always like to end with a pause and with a brief, connection with our body, with our bellies, our wombs, our hearts. And so I encourage you to pause where you are. I don't know if you're going to be standing or if you're going to be sitting or lying down. Take a deep breath. Get really comfortable. I'm going to place one hand on my belly, on my womb, and one hand over my heart. And turn inward as you breathe slow and deep, feeling yourself become more relaxed. Breathing and relaxing. Bringing your awareness to the bottoms of your feet. And pulling that relaxation up through your ankles, up through your calf muscles, up through your knees, feeling yourself becoming more relaxed with each breath. Pulling that relaxation up through the front of your thighs, the backs of your thighs, the sides of your thighs, up into your pelvis, up into all the organs and spaces of your pelvis, into your womb, your uterus, to your baby, to your ovaries, fallopian tubes, cervix, into your vaginal canal, just into your space. Even if those aren't there, you have a womb space. This is your bio battery. This is the place where you store energy. This is the place where you create. So breathe, bring lots of breath into your belly. Fill that area up with love and appreciation. Bringing that energy up through your chest, up to your heart, up your back, and out your shoulders, your arms, down to your elbows, your wrists, your fingers. Energizing and yet relaxing your body. Breathing that energy up your neck, the back of your head, your jaw, your lips, your tongue, your teeth. Feel the breath enter your nostrils, both right and left sides. Feel your eyelids softly closed, both right and left. Feeling the top of your head and your ears, both right and left ear. Take a moment to hear what's in your environment. Take a moment to taste. What does your mouth taste like? Take a moment to feel. What do your fingers feel? Take a moment to see. Even though your eyes are closed, what do you see? Now I ask you to drop into your womb, to your heart space. You know you're there when you feel your heart beating. And I want you to ask yourself, ask your body, ask your baby, ask your womb. What does your body need from you? What does your body need from you so you can feel well nourished and supported as you move through your cycles of a woman's life? What is your body asking of you right now? Trust what comes to you be the right answer. Give yourself a moment of gratitude for being present with yourself and taking the time to pause, to breathe, to listen. Acknowledge all the good things you're doing in your life. Acknowledge your perspectives and cultivate perspectives that lead to the type of experience you're hoping for. Cultivate the perspectives that lead to the life you're wanting to live, the birth you're wanting to have. A few more breaths and start to bring your awareness back into the room, back into the space. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, lower your hands. Feel yourself arrive completely in this space. And I want to say thank you to you for being here. I do ask that you tell us in the comments what your heart and what your body's asking for. And I want to invite you back next week. We'll be here at noon next week on Thursday. We'll continue this conversation about fatigue and other things that cause fatigue, like nausea and vomiting and insomnia and all that. And then also, if you're interested in nourishing herbs, those are important to you, on SoundCloud we have a podcast. Yes, it is a work in progress, but hey, everything is, right? So just go to SoundCloud and go to our birth song botanicals, and then you'll see there's a bunch of birth stories there. There's a bunch of short clips and long clips, and there's one that's called Nourishing Herbs. And so I encourage you to listen to that. There's also one about herbal teas for pregnancy. I encourage you to listen to that one too. And I also, girls, get the tea while it's here. It's not going to be here anymore. So I do encourage that. And so drink deep, walk in beauty. I'll see you next week.